Hello, and thank you so much for joining us here at the Swords of St. Michael Network. Welcome to another fabulous edition of our Dom Lorenzo Scupoli's The Spiritual Combat. If you are new to this channel or new to this series, I would love it if you could go back, take a look at Chapter 1, see some of our earlier videos. This channel is all about spiritual warfare, healing, and deliverance, and formation. The formation of our hearts, minds, and souls to God. So, as I said, welcome to the channel. Give us a thumbs up if you can. Share, like, subscribe. Click the little bell notifications so that you will get notified whenever we do new stuff. If you have suggestions, I would love if you put them down below. Critiques are always welcome. Comments are always well loved. And also, share with a friend if you know anyone else that could use a little boost. So today we're going to pack into a very, very short information session on our chapter. Can you believe it? We're already at chapter 36. Oh my goodness. This one's a really good one because we've been working on virtues and how to conquer all these things. So please put me on pause. And for those of you that are following along, grab your journal, get your cup of coffee, get your cup of green tea, whatever it is, and let's sit back and relax and step into chapter 36 after we pray ourselves in. In nomine Patri et Filii Spiritus Sanctus, sic erat in principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. Sancta Michael Arcangele, defende nos in prelio, contra nequitiam et insidiis diaboli est presidium, imperidere Deus, supplicis de peccamur tuque, princeps malitio celestis satana maliosque spiritus malignos, qui et perditionem animarum pervegantur in mundo divina virtute, in infernum detrude. Amen. Our study prayer. Concede mihi misericordia Deus, qui ti placita, sunt ardenter investigare, vericiter, agnoscere, et perfecte ad implere ad laudem et gloriam nominis tui. Amen. In English. God, grant me grace, O merciful God, to desire ardently all that is pleasing to thee, to examine it prudently, to acknowledge it prudently, to accomplish it perfectly, for the praise and glory of thy name. Amen. Thomas Aquinas. The Spiritual Combat in a Treatise on Peace of Soul, Chapter 36. The practice of virtue requires constant application. Of all the things conducive to the attainment of our present goal, vis-a-vis the acquisition of Christian virtues, the earnest desire of continual advancement is of the utmost importance, as the least pause retards us. The moment we cease forming acts of virtue, our inclinations, naturally prone to ease and pleasure of the senses, raise us disordered appetites, which overthrow, or at least weaken our virtuous habits. This is to say nothing of the loss, through such neglect, of countless graces, which we might have merited by a constant application to our spiritual advancement. This is the difference between a journey on earth and that which leads to heaven. For in the former, not only may we stop without fear of going backward, but rest in necessary, that we may sustain our strength to the journey's end. However, in the latter journey which leads to perfection, our growth in strength is proportionate to our advance, inasmuch as the inferior appetites, which throw all possible obstacles in our path to heaven, grow gradually weaker, while our good inclinations acquire new strength. Thus, as we advance in piety, our early difficulties fade into the background, and a certain delight with which God sweetens the bitterness of this life increases in our souls. Going cheerfully on from virtue to virtue, we finally reach the summit of the mountain, the summit of perfection, that happy state wherein the soul practices virtue not only without revulsion, but with an effortless ease and ineffable pleasure. For triumphant over her passions, the world and herself, she lives in God, and through Him enjoys a peaceful serenity amid her continual labors. This chapter is so powerful. As I've mentioned to you many times, if you're new here, I really am hoping that you can give this a like, and just, if it's really new to you, come back to it. I have read and read and read. I carry this book everywhere. And when anybody asks me for spiritual warfare help, or they tell me, you know, they'd like to do what I do, they'd like to be a Franciscan, they want to learn more about getting closer to God, I said, this is what Francis de Sales, this book, he gave to every single person under him, and I suggest it. So as I reread these chapters over and over again, I want to tell you, this is not easy stuff. This is not something that you're going to pick up and instantly get. However, you may pick it up and get an inspiration from your guardian angel. You may find that it means something different to you today that it's going to mean 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So make sure this is a journey that you write down those dates and those times and those inspirations, because you're not where you are or where you're going to be. You're not going to focus on what you ought to be doing. You're going to enjoy this moment. And then you're going to look back in these journals and think, oh my gosh, the ease and difficulty will be readily apparent then. Whereas right now we might be really struggling with what we're going through, and we really might be fighting all these inclinations that we have, which is so normal. This is a beautifully short chapter, well pointed out on the peace that each one of us is after. And I can tell you from many years of struggle, and even I struggle today, that the virtues that we work on, the more that we apply ourselves to them, the more peace, the happier that you're going to fall into sleep every night. The quicker with ease you're going to walk into some horrendous line that's going to take you an hour into a Franciscan rosary. The quicker you're going to look at any task that seems like a mountain that could never be reached at summit, that you will smile. Thank God for that mountain. And you'll embrace it. That's what this chapter is all about. The peace that's promised to all of us. So let's pull out our journals and let's take a look at what we've got going on this week with this chapter. To live in God. That's our ultimate desire. That's our ultimate, the end all to be all, is to have that daily walk with Him. And I just love this. We need the earnest desire in our hearts. And I want to tell you right now, if you're here, even if you're kicking and screaming, even if you don't like what you hear, even if you don't like what you see, even if you don't like the way I'm delivering this message, you're here, you're called. And don't you ever forget it. Jesus states through Paul and to Paul and through the apostles that no one can come to the Father except by Him. And only God can call you in your heart to Himself. So this may not be where you need to be right now, but I'm praying that it's going to give you that little tiny idea, that seed of where you might want to go. Even if it's not right here, right now, you're here. So I'm praying for your struggles. We're looking at consistency here. We're looking at not just the consistency of earnest desire. We're looking at a lot of times the example that was used in the chapter was the journey on earth is different than the spiritual journey, which is completely appropriate and completely true. We prepare with all sorts of things, no matter what kind of journey it is, with food, with preparations, with insurance, extra clothing, all sorts of things. For the spiritual journey, what are we laying down every day? For our spiritual journey home, what are we doing? What have we invested in to make sure that we don't lose our luggage, that we don't take the wrong flight, that we're headed in the right direction? That's what this chapter is really all about. Setting the priorities of building those building blocks of virtue. So when we're looking at, well, I got through all the sacraments and I'm, pretty hip on my catechism and I've studied theology and, I've taught for so many years and I've done this. I applaud you and I applaud your efforts and I think that's fabulous. God is calling you deeper. He seriously is calling you deeper. And this right here is telling us that just when we think we've achieved so much and maybe we don't need to work on that practice of moderation, maybe we don't really need to worry about that. We're going to retard ourselves. We're going to take steps back. And our sensate natures are going to grasp us fully and invite us right back into the ease and pleasure of what we're normally used to. This isn't a good thing. Because those vices are ready to pull us back in at any moment, at any point, at any time. So, get out your pencil and papers, journals. For level 1, as always, I have 2 levels. One is a slight bit easier and a little bit more of an introductory level. Level 2 is going to ask us to go a lot deeper. Level 1, with peaceful serenity in mind. That is our goal. With that peaceful serenity of having conquered that one little vice so that we can move on to the next and the next and the next. The one that you're working on, or you've been working on the past few weeks, I'd like you to pull out your journal and I would like you to set forth for yourself 2 objectives. Whatever it is you've been struggling with, maybe you're struggling with moderation in eating, maybe you're struggling with moderation in talking, maybe you talk too much, you talk too long and you'd like to moderate your speech, or maybe it is something, maybe it's one of the appetites, maybe you eat too much, maybe you drink too much, maybe you like to smoke too much. I'm working on one at a time, but I often am called to work on 1 or 2. So you figure out which one you're working on and let's sit down tonight, tomorrow morning, maybe while you're brushing your teeth, you're going about your regular routine before work. And I want you to write down 2 objectives that you can attack, which would be the opposite of the vice you're working on. So let's say if you're working on eating less and you need a couple objectives that are going to give you help this week so you can create a habit, find out what it is. If it's overeating, set up portions. Say, okay, this week, every night when I get home, I'm going to set up portions so I know exactly what I'm eating for the next day. Whatever it is, fine-tune what you need to do the opposite of. And I want you to write it down. 2 things. 2 things. Because what you want to do is you want to make it easier for yourself to step into this habit. All right? Stick to it. You're doing great. I'm so proud you're still here. My level 2 people, we're going to do the same thing. I want you to look at what you're fighting with, what you're wrestling with. What is your Job's ladder that you're just struggling to define and struggling to root out of yourself? I want you to look at this exercise a little bit differently, because for level 2, not only do I want you to look at your objectives and write them down on how to attack this by practicing, the opposite effect of the inclination of your vice you're going through. What I'd like you to do is I want you to think long term. As we know, it takes 21 days to effectively establish a habit. So level 2, you're looking to pull out your daily journal, to pull out your calendar, if you have a Catholic calendar, whatever sort of daily, if it's a phone, if it's a smartphone, pull it out. And I'd like you to look at these 2 objectives, practicing the opposite effect. I'd like you to look at those and say, all right, for example, if you're looking at fighting a vice of, well, we were talking about eating, how about moderation? Maybe it's moderation in smoking and drinking or something like that. Moderation. If moderation is your goal and you're going to practice 2 objectives each day, I want you to write down an M. And when you have achieved both objectives, when you've had the opportunity to achieve both, I want you to put a circle and a slash, meaning that you did not give in, you did not indulge. And if so, if you got it and you circled it, 21 days from now, we're going to be on lesson, or not 21 days from now, but 21 days from now, I'm going to remind you that we're going to go a little bit further in 21 days. So let's mark this on the calendar. This is going to be something we're going to look forward to, because as you have read and as you are going to see, changes are going to be happening in yourself that you're just going to be like, wow, can't believe I went through that. Can't believe I struggled with that for so long. But as always, I've mentioned before in our lessons and talks, we have our guardian angels to lean on. We have the triumphant angels to pray to, the saints to help take our prayers to heaven and the foot of the cross. So never forget, the battle's already been won. And I pray and hope to be here to help you continue the fight. So thank you for joining us here at Swords of St. Michael. Please give us a like, a thumbs up, share if you can. Thank you to my new Patreon subscriber this week. I really appreciate it, because I get to send medals and help everybody all over. This is Sister Farah, and I'm praying you have a beautiful night and a wonderful week. God bless. Take care until next week.